As many of you know, the GLP-1 receptor agonists, and particularly semaglutide, as well as other agents like tirzepatide, have been quite notable for their impact on various cardiovascular kidney metabolic outcomes. So improvements in cardiovascular event rates, kidney disease event rates, as well as metabolic outcomes like blood pressure, blood sugar, and of course, weight as well. This is a really important class of drugs, but many patients have a little bit of hesitation around using the injectable form of semaglutide. So SOUL was the first cardiovascular outcomes trial examining the benefits from a cardiovascular standpoint of oral semaglutide among patients who had diabetes and high risk for cardiovascular disease. So the trial specifically included 9,650 patients with diabetes who had either atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or chronic kidney disease or a combination of the two, and compared individuals who were getting escalating doses of oral semaglutide to individuals who are on placebo. What they found is that over the course of follow-up, which I believe was about 3 years, they saw a significant reduction in their primary outcome among patients who are getting oral semaglutide. So about a 14% reduction in major adverse cardiovascular events with oral semaglutide. The results were actually similar across some pre-specified subgroups, so different demographic groups, different clinical groups, and regardless of whether individuals were or were not using background SGLT2 inhibitor therapy. And this trial had about 25% who were using background SGLT2 inhibitor therapy, which is the largest percentage, I think, in any of the more contemporary trials. What they also found here that was important is they looked at secondary outcomes. Secondary outcomes included adverse kidney events and also cardiovascular mortality, and they did not see a reduction in those outcomes, which is a little bit in contrast to what has been seen for some of the earlier trials of semaglutide. And one of the questions is this because of differences in the study populations? So for example, the FLOW trial that came out not long ago showed a reduction in mortality and kidney events among patients with diabetes and chronic kidney disease. But the kidney disease in that trial was more severe than the kidney disease that we had in this trial. So is that part of the reason why we're not seeing the same results? Or are there differences between the bioavailability of injectable and oral semaglutide? So that's something we don't yet know and something that will require some further study. But at the end of the day, the most important take home here is that we're seeing a new option for improving cardiovascular outcomes among patients with diabetes who have either atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or chronic kidney disease or the combination. And we see an oral formulation that is showing that cardiovascular benefit. Now, another important question is about safety. And there have been prior trials demonstrating the safety of oral semaglutide, and that was also confirmed here. So there was not a higher rate of adverse events or a worse safety signal among patients getting semaglutide versus those individuals who are getting placebo. So we see that it's a safe option. We see a benefit in terms of major adverse cardiovascular events. I should also note that that benefit was largely driven by myocardial infarction. So a reduction in rates of myocardial infarction. And then the contrast to prior trials of semaglutide is that we didn't see a reduction in cardiovascular mortality that we've seen in some prior trials, as well as kidney events. And there's still some need for further understanding of why we're seeing that difference. But a really important next step in terms of therapies for patients with diabetes, a new oral option for incretin therapy, that's the GLP-1 receptor agonist, with benefits potentially for multiple outcomes related to cardiovascular kidney metabolic health in this population.